It is a scam when you don't allow everyone to operate on fair terms.
We are the Robin Hoods of sports betting. We take something back from the rich bookies and enable our customers to beat them instead.
G'day everyone and welcome to our FIFA World Cup 2022 daily live streams on the TradeMate Sports Betting Podcast. Today we will be previewing tomorrow's group games, which are Switzerland versus Cameroon, Uruguay versus South Korea, Portugal versus Ghana, and finishing off the first round of group games with Brazil versus Serbia. As always, guys, please make sure you send through any questions, comments, bets you like throughout the stream for tomorrow's games, or maybe any little outright bets that you like. Anything you like, just feel free to comment throughout the stream. Hopefully the professor is back today. And guess we have unfortunately George couldn't make it, so we've had a late replacement. And who else would you want as a late replacement other than pro sports bettor Neel Shah? How are you, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. Maybe it's more a case of who else could you get rather than who else would you want. Just short notice.
Yeah, they said try find the guy with the best internet around, and I thought, yeah, let's get Neel Shah on. And we've also got the trusty Paul from Feinting the Line. How are you, mate?
Paul's gone already.
That's great. That's great. I'm good, and my internet is crisp.
Yes, I can see, mate. It's as crisp as ever. You'll never let me down with that internet. Evening to you, Janelle too. Janelle. And we've got I'm not going to say your name. It's quite a handful there, mouthful. We've got felt sorry for De Bruyne, starved of options all night. Yeah, I watched a little bit of the Belgium game. I mean, bloody hell. The Canada, I think they racked up 2.83 in XG or something like that, and they didn't get a goal. So I feel sorry for Canada. Their old mate at the front, Buchanan, let them down a few times. I didn't watch the whole game, but geez, they certainly missed some chances. But quick recap of our bets from yesterday, fellas. We had quite a good day. What did you think of the action today, Paul?
I was very pleased. Woke up a little bit late for me, and Mazraoui had 2 tackles already, so I was happy about that. And then at halftime 4, and everything just kind of went well from there. Spanish with all that possession. I mean, kind of just how we called it. We said it could either be 6-2 or 6-0, or it could be 1-0, 2-0. But either way, the Spanish were going to rack the passes and possession. So appreciate you there in the chat, Journal, and some good winners yesterday.
Yep, and I'll try it this time. No Pattaya for Shannon. No idea what that means, but I feel like it's supposed to be funny. So good stuff, mate. He says immaculate read on the Spanish players, by the way.
Yeah,
so yeah, well done. Well done to you, Paul. And Neel, I think you picked up a few winners yourself, mate. The first one that comes to mind, the offsides bet was coming in, and I will say privately, Neel was sending me some nice passes bets too. So Modric, Rudiger. Mate, you're helping me feed the family, so thank you very much.
Yeah, it was a good one. Sorry, I can't share them all on the pod, but I'll definitely. There's one I can potentially share today. So, it was a good day all round, and absolutely, with Paul's stuff as well. He's helping me feed my family too, for sure.
Yeah, and Japan getting the win. I had a little nibble on Japan at 7, so
very nice.
Just the family are eating well tonight, mate. The family are eating very well. All right, fellas. Well, yeah, an interesting day's play today. Had some, I guess shockish result with Japan winning there, especially from behind. Belgium taking a big step there in their group. But we've got the final round of group games today. We'll kick things off with the game between Switzerland versus Cameroon. Switzerland at 1.75, the draw 3.61, Cameroon 5.48, Asian handicap at 0.75, and the over-under at 2.25. Switzerland been in, pretty good form lately. They finished off the Nations League in great form, beating Portugal, Spain, and the Czech Republic. They're normally quite solid defensively. attack can be a little inconsistent, but I think they're pretty versatile with how they set up. They're not the old, the old Switzerland we've been used to at times where they're very defensively minded. So, given they're playing someone like Cameroon here, they will probably take up the initiative. Cameroon, I've heard from many, they look to be the weakest African side. Their last win was back in June, a 1-0 win over Burundi. I hope I pronounced that right. This looks like very much set up for a Switzerland. You could say a Switzerland win, or just an affair dominated by Switzerland. Whether they can get the goals or not is up to them. But how do you expect these teams to set up, Paul? Do you think Switzerland will take the initiative and Cameroon sit back?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you say that because I know Neel has an interesting angle on this game, and it's interesting you say that about them dominating but maybe not scoring, because that could probably play into his angle a little bit. I mean, I don't know. I just from like the way you're kind of describing the game, Alex, I might see it a little bit differently. I mean, I certainly don't trust the Cameroonians. I've watched a lot of African football in my day, and they can have their day, and they've got some guys that can really, like, obviously Abubakar scored a lot of goals, and Geese is a Rolls Royce of a midfielder, really. But outside of that, I mean, you're relying on some, trepid defenders, I'd say. So, I mean, I think the Swiss probably a good shout for maybe like a penalty goal or something in the second half. But I kind of tend to see this one. I broke it down a couple ways, and I kind of actually see it similar to the Morocco-Croatia game that we had today. So this is like, some of this is kind of coincidental, but I'm gonna give you a couple reasons why it's kind of a similar recipe. So they're both the first games of the group here. Okay, in a group that by the odds, the second and third place is a little bit tighter. And you got those second and third place teams basically vying for that second spot in the group. So it's a kind of tight group, I would say. And it's the first kickoff of the group, just like that Morocco-Croatia game, early game. And that's why I took the draw in that game. And I kind of like this also here because the goal line's also set similar. It's set at 2.25, straddling 2. And the odds have been pretty static on both sides, not much movement in any of the odds. And we're getting the draw at 2.73 at Pinnacle. So what I would do here is, like, just like yesterday, on my handicap bets, I'm always playing them less than my prop bets. I don't specialize in the games, but I would play this for, like, I'd take a quarter unit and I'd play, half of it on the draw, and then I at 3.63, and then I would play half of it on the first half draw at 2.12 at Pinnacle, because I do think I could see the Swiss eventually breaking it open, maybe getting a couple corners, maybe in the first half, some domination, but maybe just not enough, like, attacking fluidity, I'd say, probably in the final third from the Swiss. But then maybe, like, as the game wears down and those Cameroonian legs, I mean, they're not a deep team at all. And they don't even have, like, really a great full 11, I'd say. So once you get into the bench, or like once you get into the final 20 minutes, we're seeing more added time and things like that. So I could definitely see like a sub goal or an added time goal for Switzerland, or a second half goal or something. But I'm going to play the first half draw in the draw for, like, split a small stake between those two.
Okay, interesting, mate. One thing I am hearing about Cameroon is that their coach kind of isn't tactically the most astute. So it'll be interesting to see how, you got a side versus Switzerland who are, pretty versatile in the way that they can play. If, like, as the game goes on, potentially, Switzerland could change things up, and Cameroon might just stick to the same thing. That they just won't be as versatile, I guess, if they, like you said, if it is a draw at halftime. And Switzerland or Cameroon are both, looking to find that goal. So, yeah, that's another interesting angle you could add to this one. What about you, Neel? I see you just posted up a bet in your channel. I was actually looking at that too, funny enough. I saw the line for corners was at -2 on Pinnacle, and I thought that might be a little bit too small in terms of the minus for the Swiss.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, it's interesting because kind of just kind of eyeballing that line, it looked interesting, but then kind of digging into it a bit further, out of all the teams, all 32 teams at the tournament, the Swiss averaged the most corners. I think it was about 6.7 a game, and Cameroon, I think, are the eighth worst out of the lot. So, it's a fairly simple play. I'm not sort of saying it's that sophisticated. This is what you get with 30 minutes notice, Alex. But yeah, I think it's a strong play. I think they're going to, clearly dominate possession. They have got, again, sort of pace on the wings. They've got the likes of Mbola, I think, will be playing. So you can expect them to really hit those numbers. So I quite like that. I think it's kind of fairly generous odds. You can take again sort of -2 at a few of the UK books. I think the best I saw was Bet Victor. I think it's like 2.38. I'm personally going to take the -1.5, the Asian. And again, there's a few books you can do that with, the 365, and that will be, I believe it was 1.9 that I posted up. So yeah, I'm quite happy with that. There's a few other plays on this game I like, that you can kind of explore as well. So I looked at, again, the tackle expectancy in this game. Actually, Cameroon surprised me. I think sort of the average tackles they get in each game is about 11, and I think the Swiss are about 14. So there were a few books who used to. I was discussing this with Neel, who did do most tackles. If you can find a line like that, I wasn't able to. But even then, the 365 unders line is set at 29.5, which I think could be quite interesting. It's being played at sort of one of the early kickoffs, so temperatures won't be roasting hot. Not that they necessarily are during the afternoon now, as we've already discussed. But that certainly could be an option as well. And one more for this game as well. I'm quite keen on in my group is for Xhaka to rack up passes. Again, I just see. It depends kind of what formation, what kind of shape that switch to go with. They kind of sometimes have a 4-2-3-1, sometimes 4-1-2, but generally kind of Xhaka, wherever he's kind of deployed for the Swiss, will be getting a lot of the ball. He's kind of an integral part of that team. And I think it can be a bit of a sort of creative fulcrum again, kind of keeping that kind of metronome going. He's hit, I think, 88 passes against Italy away. He hit kind of 52 passes against Spain, which, as we saw today with Costa Rica, that's some feat, to be getting 50 plus passes in a game against the Spanish. So again, you look at the kind of relative strengths and the supremacies between the two teams, and I think and the way the game will probably play out. Again, if you can take any kind of passes lines on him, some of them have already been battered in before this podcast, so apologies for that. I think Ladbrokes had 65 plus, and that was 2.1, I believe, when I posted it with members. It's gone down to 1.35, but there might be some value around on other books. If you shop around, there should still be some at 365. And yeah, those would be my place for the game. I think 1.75 a little bit short for me, just for the reasons that Paul's mentioned. It could easily end up a draw. I mean, you look at these kind of games and you look at kind of profile like we've mentioned, and again, it kind of looks like it could scream another 0-0 potentially. So those would be my plays, and I think it's kind of important to kind of discuss. So obviously, myself and Paul, we do sort of tend to focus more on a kind of more aggressive with our staking on prop slides, because it's, I think, in some ways easier to define an edge on them, and also to kind of look at factors that the bookies are missing. I think obviously on the money lines and the handicaps, there's so much money shaping those markets. Big players, who are taking positions on them, who don't really care about the props necessarily. They're not able to get kind of huge stakes down. So, for the likes of us, that's great. And again, with a bit of knowledge and foresight of the tactics and the setups, you can really take advantage of that. So yeah, to me, that the passes line stands out, tackles as well, and the corners. So those would be my three ways into this game.
Yeah, no, good shout, mate, and a good example of the Shaka bet too, with bookies not really taking into account, I guess, or at least heavily maybe weighing a bit too much on their club, how they play for their club compared to their country, because Shaka like basically plays as an attacking midfielder for Arsenal nowadays. He's so high up the pitch and attacking in the box. Whereas for Switzerland, he's going to sit back a lot more and rack up passes. So I think, there's at least two great angles there, mate, with your corners and Shaka passes. I think that's certainly a good angle for this one, mate. So we'll lock those in for you guys. But yeah, you would expect Switzerland to. I think it's an interesting angle from you, Paul, in terms of the draw, because although the draw is obviously a good chance of happening, like on the other hand, they are in a bit of a battle with Serbia to get out of this group. So you would expect if they can get 3 points from this one, and Serbia lose to Brazil, which will most likely happen, then it could go. I mean, it's a huge step up for them in terms of getting out of this group. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Switzerland approach the game. Uruguay versus South Korea. Uruguay have been backed in a little bit over the last 24 hours, 1.71 there. The draw, 3.69. South Korea at 5.95. Asian handicap at 0.75. And the over-under at 2.25. Uruguay, full of goals, great in midfield, good up front, coming up against the South Korean side who do seem to ship goals, especially against stronger opposition. I look back at some of their fixtures this year and their games against Brazil, Paraguay and Japan. If you combine those all together, they conceded 10 goals. But they have been able to put away weaker teams, but obviously Uruguay are not a weaker team. So, it seems like people are fancying Uruguay in this one, which is, seen in the market. What about you, Neel? You like the Uruguayans, if that's even a word?
I mean, I have seen quite a few people kind of just tipping up Uruguay with a straight bet. It's interesting you've got 1.71 and they haven't actually followed the prices. I did see there were 1.8 on the exchange a few hours ago, so I don't know if money has already kind of been coming in. I wouldn't put anyone off a straight bet on them, but again, as we're seeing in this tournament, there are some teams again with that kind of physical fitness level who can kind of grind away and keep it competitive. That kind of cautiousness in the first game, it's more a case of not losing and costing yourself big. I think one of the friends of the podcast, Mark O'Hare, posted up a stat that something like 75% of teams who lose the first game don't actually qualify for the knockout rounds. So that does kind of play into it there. And another one for this. These aren't normally my specialty, but maybe it's in the absence of George because I know he likes a corners bet. I'm going for another corners bet in this one. Again, kind of based on the fact that generally both of them tend to have quite low corner counts. Uruguay one of the lowest, and Korea too. So I'm actually going for under 8.5 corners in the game. I think as we were discussing before with Paul, neither team necessarily their strong points are pace on the wings or kind of stretching the play there, kind of compact in the center. And then there was obviously kind of question marks. Let's see. I'll be really interested to see how Son performs. I'm not going to be too upset if South Korea get battered in the first two games, then he gets rested in the third one, fresh for Spurs. So we'll have to see. If I was to take Uruguay, I'd want to, again, I'd expect maybe Korea to keep this tight, maybe kind of going in 0-0 at half time, and then Uruguay to kind of steam in second half. If you wanted to play a props angle, lots of people have been kind of tipping up Nunez, as a potential outsider for top for Golden Boot. So again, you could perhaps look at him for an anytime goal. I think Uruguay will go with him and Suarez. I think Cavani will miss out as far as I'm aware, but we'll have to see. But yeah, that would be my angle in corners. and just kind of monitoring in play to see. There's quite a few of these games really that you can kind of look at and think this could end up a 0-0 as well. I mean, you might, just kind of blindly backing a few of these just for the 0-0s from what we've seen already. For a bit of fun, I wouldn't put you off that either.
Yeah, it's an interesting game, isn't it? Because Uruguay have got goals in them, and you just you don't know how they're going to go against a team that could potentially just sit back the whole game. So yeah, any thoughts on this, Paul?
Yeah, so I don't have a ton to add here, so it's probably great that Neel put out some fantastic bets for these first two games. I mean, just kind of looking at the odds here, we've got Uruguay, they opened 1.9, and that's in a quarter goal's worth of money down now to 3/4 of a goal for Uruguay, starting on the handicap, like you said there, Alex. Basically, the reports came out today that Son's back in training. I think they're going to try to give him a go. I don't necessarily know how that'll go. I've seen some people going like under his tackles and things like that. I just tend to be careful with that type of thing. I know Darwin can really create a lot of them down that wing. So even the attackers, I know some people are putting some unders up there, but I tend to be careful. Just depends what odds you're at, I guess, but I would tend to be careful in those ranges. Totals at 2.25 over 2 straddled again here. We're seeing a lot of that this World Cup. I mean, that goes to Neel's point that we've seen a lot, a few 0-0s when the big supremacies like for Spain or England haven't come through against, a minnow. And then we're seeing, these, tight games, especially the first ones in the group and things like that. So, I mean, yeah, another 2 to 2.25 goal line. So, market's not necessarily expecting Uruguay to crack it open, but yeah, I just don't have a strong bet here. I'd say I'm going to save my bullets for the other two games, and I would back Neel's plays if I were you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it'll be. You would expect. I mean, Uruguay are probably going to score a goal. And they've tended, like, if you look at some of their recent matches, a lot of their wins, they're winning to 0. So it seems like if they can get that first goal, then there's a good chance that they'll be able to hold on to it. And South Korea, not too strong defensive. I can understand why people are really fancying the Uruguay at 1.7 or whatever, 1.8. So yeah, maybe there is a play there for Uruguay if the odds do bounce back a little bit. But yeah, kind of a hard one to get a read on for the fellas here. So we'll move on.
Portugal, just quickly.
Yes, mate.
Just on that point, yeah, because I was just looking as you said that. So Uruguay wins 0, 2.55. Doesn't seem a bad one. Yeah, so that's an angle you're looking into.
Yeah, I saw Bota scored no at like 1.7, and then the game odds are at 1.7. I don't know what you're getting combined on those, but that might be a good shout. Like if Sun's out, maybe. Maybe look at that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the win to 0 is an interesting one. I have to think a little bit more about that one. But if Uruguay are going to win, obviously it's favoured that they would win to 0, considering both teams not to score. But yeah, just
goal line's already so low too. I don't know what the odds are. I haven't looked at a money line and Bota scored no, but goal line's already so low, so that would point to it too. But yeah, I mean, it's just really not a game for me personally.
I'm just not sure I trust, some of those Uruguayan defenders, if they're playing a high line, to be able to get back. And if Son's playing, he's just so ruthless on the counter attack. So you never know. Maybe it's just one to see if Son does play or not. So we'll move on. We're not really
unders corners with Neel, I think.
Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot about that one.
Because the other, I mean, Valverde's a problem a little bit, I'd say, down the wing if he's playing right wing, but like Valverde and Nunez, but like Suarez, he's not going to get out towards that wing, and I don't think they're going to get many down the left there, corners like Uruguay, because you're looking basically, is Uruguay going to get a bunch of corners? Swang and Son could create a few, but I mean, I'd tend to like that bet on the unders.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff. Let's lock that one in, and then we'll move on, as I'll try for the 100th time here, move on to the Portugal versus Ghana game. We've got Portugal here at 1.42. Ghana are at 9s. The draw's at 4.97. Asian handicap, 1.25, and the over-unders at 2.5. I think firstly we've got to talk about this whole Ronaldo situation and how it could affect Portugal, because I liked Portugal at the start of the tournament. If for those who looked at the outright preview, and I said, but my biggest concern is this whole Ronaldo thing, and I kind of think here, like Ghana at 9, Ghana are a good side. I know that they haven't performed well lately, but if you look at their side, they've got some quality in there. You've got Partey, arguably one of the best midfielders in the Premier League, Williams, Ayew, Lamptey, Salisu, coming up against a Portugal team that could potentially be heavily fractured, and you just don't like the images you've got coming out of the Portugal camp. So do you have any feelings on this, Paul, at all, that that potentially Portugal? I just wouldn't go anywhere near a 1.42 on Portugal. I don't care if they're playing the worst team in the World Cup. They're certainly not in this case, but you just get worried that there could be some serious fractures in that camp.
Yeah, I'd say it doesn't have. I mean, you can analyze that. I'll let Neel analyze the Ronaldo portion. Let's leave that for him. I'll take the odds. Basically, what I see here is that there's a half goal's worth of money since open that's come for Portugal. But like you're saying, I similarly would not trust them at those prices, Alex. So I totally agree there. And like the Ghanaians, like you're saying, they are an athletic side. Their coach for me is a little bit of a question mark too with some of the team selections, but they are an athletic side, and if they get all those guys out there, like they're a feisty side, I'd say. So if they can keep their heads and be disciplined, then they could they can put up a challenge. Like if I was looking to get into this game, I would not be looking to get in on the Portugal side. I'm not going to take a bet on anything on the over-unders or the handicaps here, like Asian lines, any type of big markets. It's just not one for me. But if I was going to do anything, I'd like back the Ghanaians on the money line or first half money lines, very small, like just sprinkle it or something. Or, I'd be on their side, though. I would not be on the Portugal side at these odds. They're just, I mean, for me, it's just, I'm not a huge Santos fan, and then they're just, they kind of, to me, they kind of embody him. It's a very, like, lazy-ish side, which is crazy to say. Like, when you have some of the names that they have in their camp, like you have like Diaz, Cancelo, Bernardo down that one side. Like I really like that side, but they just get a little complacent for me. And I do like a different angle though in here, like I was saying about how athletic Ghana is. Partey, Amarty, Salisu forms the spine there. You got Baba and probably Lamptey on the wings, and whoever they choose in the upper midfield, Kudus, Suleimana, whoever they're going to choose in there. But all these guys are feisty. And for that reason, I love the tackles, team total over tackles for Ghana at 16.5 at Bet365. Also at Bovada, minus 115. And I'm going to also ladder it on 365 for over 18.5 at 3 and over 22.5 at 8. You should put, some smaller stakes on. Alternatively, also, Boyle Sports has the main line at 5 over 6, so it's a pretty widely available line. The last 7 of 10 games for Ghana have clicked this 17 team total tackles. Can't remember. Let me look real quick whether I was looking at just... Not sure if I was looking at just Yeah, it's their last 10 all competitions have clicked that 17 line. So I do really like the team totals for Ghana. There's a few guys in that Portuguese side who like to dribble. I think we're getting the odds because they probably don't have, there's only a decent amount of tackles in Portugal's game. So overall, on average, I think the odds are based more probably on that average. But like against the Ghanaian side tends to tackle a lot, and especially against better sides, they tend to like better European sides. And this Portuguese side has a lot of guys that'll leave a dribble out there. You're thinking about maybe Leao. You're thinking about maybe Bernardo Fernandez. Cancelo's been known to leave a dribble. Nuno Mendes if he's in on the left. So really could see a lot of these athletic Ghanaians sticking in a foot, and love the over 16.5 tackles at 1.9 there on Bet365.
Okay, awesome, mate. And Neel, you can answer my question then. How is this Cristiano Ronaldo saga going to affect Portugal?
I suppose, like anything in terms of betting, it's always good to take a contrarian position and think, again, if something is in the public domain, if everyone's talking about it, if the whole world's going crazy about it, it's probably been an overreaction. I don't know if there's any Man United fans who are watching this stream, or who used to watch Man United back in the 90s. They used to have two great strikers, Teddy Sheringham and Andy Cole, who absolutely hated each other, didn't speak for I don't know, a decade. I don't think maybe they've made it up now, or maybe they haven't, but they went years and years and years without talking to each other. Literally wouldn't say a word to each other. They played in the same team. They won the Champions League. They won a treble. They won everything left, right, and centre. And it only actually came out sort of years after that it was the case. So I think people are reading a lot into this. I think again, all these players want to win for their country. No one's not going to pass to Ronaldo. Ronaldo might not pass to someone else. That's a different story. But yeah, I don't read too much into it. I've seen some of these videos that were kind of floating around and training. There was one, I think it was with Cancelo, but he was getting kind of heated after a challenge. But that's all kind of Ronaldo did, was just kind of trying to calm him down. But if anyone's sort of been really wound up, and one of your mates, just try, tells you to chill out. The last thing you want is someone telling you to chill out while you're all worked up. So I don't think that was anything to do with Ronaldo. I think Bruno Fernandes, to be honest, it's understandable. He's probably fed up with all the attention and maybe a bit fed up with the sight of him. But I don't think this is coming down to outright hatred. You look at what he's done for his country. You look at everything he contributes to that team, and I don't see it. The problem I see is that in the same way for Man U, he kind of restricts some of your attacking play. He does, he's not able to press. He doesn't have the energy levels he did before. He's essentially kind of restricted in terms of the movement that he does have now, and that's a problem because Portugal can't actually shoehorn some of their best players into that team. I think actually once he goes, he's one of the greatest of all time. But actually at this point in time, I think if he is to go, Portugal have a very strong team into the next Euros and a really, really solid spine. So yeah, I don't see it. And if anything, if the price has drifted because of it, I think there's kind of value added because I think they're still a very strong side. But I agree with everything Paul's saying there. This could be another sort of this could be another 0-0. You know what? Just 0-0 and everything tomorrow. It's just don't even bother watching because everything's going to be 0-0. But yeah, I mean something else, and I was looking into this, and I'm struggling to find an angle in because Ghana, they're pretty poor looking at the stats. If you look at their recent form, the last 25 games, they average a goal a game. Considering who they're playing, some of the teams, in AFCON, that's not great. Whereas Portugal are scoring kind of more than 2 a game. So would you take the over-unders? I don't know. Portugal have form for this again, trying to break down that team. They're looking a bit disjointed. There's been a few people, I think, taking like Ronaldo to score a hat-trick. If you want a good bet to mug in your account and keep you going for longer. Maybe you could try that. But yeah, tough one for me to call. I think it could be another one of those to look, monitor and play. Maybe a half-time draw, full-time Portugal, maybe back, goals in the second half. Maybe this is the game that we could see a red card potentially. I haven't actually looked into the referee for this game though, so I can't say I've done the research for that. But again, if the referee kind of stats look good for that, that might be another angle in.
All right, mate. Yeah, I think it's an interesting take on the whole Ronaldo thing, and you are probably right that at the end of the day they're just going to go out there and play football. The only maybe time you could see it really boil over is Ghana got an early goal and they can't seem to break them down maybe and get that equaliser.
Yeah.
Ronaldo does something that just makes him look like a shit human being. I don't know. He doesn't look like the nicest guy in the world watching that interview, but I would say that it will be interesting to see what he's obviously had a terrible time at Manchester United this season and hated his time there. So it'd be interesting to see, in a different setup, if a change in, emotions, being
point.
happier, if it could completely reverse his form. Because that was something he did say in the interview, even though it was just a hard watch considering it was two of the worst human beings, basically just telling each other how good they are.
Isn't one of them an Arsenal fan?
Oh, mate, he's not a representation, let's just say. But I think it's interesting to see, like, if he is, he should be happier under the, playing for Portugal, to see if there is a reverse in his form, because I think that's probably something that's underlooked by a lot of people in any sport, really. If you're a happy person, if you're emotionally settled and having a good time, you're going to perform better. So, because
it's massive.
Like, he scored 20 odd goals last season for Manchester United, and this season, like, he's literally employed. I don't know how many goals he's scored, but he's been well below what he did last season. So it's been like a really quick decline. So maybe it is, because he's just unhappy. But yeah.
But I think it's huge. Yeah, it's absolutely huge. Like you just see today, like Batshuayi, again, scored for Belgium, and he looks like a world beater when he's playing for them. Again, the likes of like David Healy for Northern Ireland was kind of scoring goals for fun against Italy, Spain, and big European teams, and just kind of nothing on the club stage. So totally different environment. He's kind of again kind of revered by his country, away from all of that. Yeah, absolutely. And we all know he's a big game player. He absolutely rises to the occasion. So, why
Neel,
not in the Euros? Yeah.
Oh, sorry to interrupt. I would say I like, if you're going for like a mug bet on like the first goal, Ronaldo, like anytime goal scorer, like like if you're doing it live maybe, or even if you're doing it pregame, like if you're just looking for a mug bet, it might be worth adding like the 7.5 for him to be booked. Just looking
absolutely.
there on 365, like especially if it's like later, like if you're looking at a live bet like after halftime, and if it's like 0-0 late, and like and he's still on the pitch. I mean, he could always be subbed too, so you got to think about that. But that's just to juice the odds a bit if you're looking for something more recreational. I might add that in there.
No, that's a great shout. I mean, he gets a surprising number of yellow cards. Something I didn't know kind of earlier, this year. But looking at his career stats, at least for his clubs, he does pick them up. So yeah, no, I think that's a great shout.
All right, good stuff. Well, he's looking for a club. He needs to sign with someone, and he obviously does still have a desire to play in the Champions League. So I would assume he's going to be determined as ever. I'm sure he's determined a lot of the time, but you would think he's going to be fired up and ready to prove everyone wrong after copping a lot of probably, disdain in the media lately. And he's looking for a new club. He wants to stay in the Champions League and play Champions League football. So, yeah, wouldn't be surprised to see him get on the score sheet tomorrow. Let's look at the final game of the opening group games. The favourites, Brazil, going up against Serbia. Brazil at 1.48, the draw 4.7. Serbia at 7.2. The Asian handicap is at 1.25 goals, and the over/under at 2.75. This looks like it could be quite an entertaining game potentially on the horizon here. You've got Brazil, who have the most ridiculous front line in terms of who's not going to be in the starting team you've ever seen in any tournament, I think, going up against Serbia, who love to score and they love to concede goals. So I quite like Brazil in this one. I'm surprised that they're as high as 1.48. I thought they would be a little bit lower, maybe around the 1.35, 1.4 mark. Maybe we'll see some more money for them before game time, but they're a class side, and maybe people got a little bit scared with the other favourites, Argentina, getting knocked off, and this has gone out a little bit. But I think tactically and the way this game could be set up for them, it looks to me like a game where it really could favour Brazil. I mean, they can obviously score goals, and Serbia ship them all the time, and they're pretty solid at the back too, Brazil. So anyway, that's my opinion. What about you, Neel?
Yeah, I think the odds are kind of a tad generous, but at the same time, Serbia are a dangerous side. They do have a lot of quality in there. They've got fantastic quality up front themselves. Not on Brazil's level, but absolutely enough to kind of compete against on their day against anyone. With Modric and Vlahovic, and a good spine too. It could be a goal fest. I think if there's an early goal, kind of the game explodes into life. This could be one again. I mean, I was looking at cards for this, but I think the line's a little bit high for my liking. One thing I was also looking at is again for Neymar to get assists, because he's actually kind of deployed by Tite a little bit further back, than he would be for PSG. So he's actually kind of, I suppose you call him like the most advanced attacking midfielder, trequartista. I don't know what you'd call it, but he's kind of sits slightly behind. So you might be wanting to look at if I'm not sure if Richarlison starts the game, Rafinha as well potentially. Those look the last. Vinicius seems to be the one who's left on the bench, which is incredible considering his talent, but that's his strength and depth, I think. So I would perhaps maybe look away from Neymar to be top scorer, but then in the assist market, which he does rack up quite a few. He's in sort of double digits in sort of recent games. The odds don't look too appealing for that. But absolutely want to play. I think there's potential. I think if Brazil get one early, they can kind of run away with it. This could be I'm not going to say on the level of like kind of England and Iran, but again they could score a few. I think they could just really cause a lot of problems, and then they kind of bang up for it. I think it's going to be an interesting game. I think of the 4 games tomorrow, this will be the one I'm looking forward to watching.
Yeah, I've actually already had a bet in this game. I bet Brazil and over 1.5 goals at 1.8, and which
That's
basically
good price.
Because I thought that Brazil could go a little bit shorter, like I said before, maybe down towards that 1.4 mark, and then you're basically just taking out the 1-0 for Brazil, which I think would be, I think that's pretty unlikely given that Serbia are very attack orientated, and if they go a goal down against Brazil, don't think they're going to sit back and defend that 1-0. They're going to try their hardest to score another goal, and with the quality that Brazil are, that they have, I could see them easily, scoring 2. I really see Brazil scoring 2 or 3 in this game. Serbia maybe scoring 1 themselves. I saw match result in both teams to score at 3.3 here for Brazil. So I wouldn't even put people off that, considering the class that Serbia have. They always score goals no matter what game. So that's another one I like too. Any thoughts on this one for you, Paul?
Yeah, so on I kind of I kind of tend to see the game the same way you guys do. Some goals probably, and probably the Brazilians end up coming out on top. I mean, I wouldn't put you off like that Brazil and over 1.5 that you're saying there, Alex. But I'm gonna have a different bet, and just like you said, I think the Serbians could probably get one. But their back line is atrocious, and I see Richarlison and Rafinha and if he's in there, and Vinny if he's in there, and behind all day long. Um, so basically, like 3 of the 12 games that we've had so far in the World Cup have had at least 4 goals, like kind of like a basketball match type score. And actually, only 2 of the games have landed on 3. So you've basically been getting a basketball match or like one of these dread nil-nillers, like we got there on Morocco Croatia with the draw today. Um, I, I mean, -1 seems to be okay to me for the match odds. They've been pretty like static. So I think it's somewhat efficient, the match odds, but like if you're gonna double like Brazil in the goals, like I think you're getting value in the goals anyways. So like I trust the Brazilians enough to throw them in there. So like I wouldn't put anybody off that. But yeah, I'd be splitting my stake between over 2.75 goals at 1.95 on Pinnacle and the over 3.75 at 3.5 right now on Pinnacle. Like I said, for those reasons, like where it's either a basketball match or not, I kind of like splitting my stake on the higher odds, so that I can get a little more out. If it does tend to be one of those basketball matches, and if you just kind of read the attacking talent on the pitch, Mitrovic, Kostic, Tadic, Vlahovic, potentially Mitrovic if he's not sick or hurt or whatever. Milinkovic, Savic, Neymar, Vinicius, potentially Rafinha, potentially Richarlison, and like you said with the Brazilians, it doesn't matter if you need those wingers off the bench because they're all amazing anyways. Rodrigo, all those young guys. So it doesn't really matter to me the Brazilian composition or anything like that. I'm happy to take a bet, and Chite's got a pretty settled kind of formation anyway. So I'm happy to take the Brazilians. 4 of Serbia's last 7 from the summer on have hit 4 goals, and 5 of Brazil's last 7 in that same time frame have clicked the 4 goals. So you're really getting pretty incredible hit rates for that 3.5 payout on the over 3.75. And if they just hit 4, then you're getting the half payout too. So I really do like that over 3.75 there. And then if you just take a look at the player props here, I've got a widely available one also here. I'm getting the best price on the main line at Bovada for match tackles in this Brazil-Serbia game. The match tackles over 31.5 is at 1.86 at Bovada. I like that down to like 1.68 on the main line there. Alternatively, you could take Boyles at over 32.5 at evens, or you could take Bet365 on the main line at over 31.5 at 1.83. And while you're at Bet365, I would ladder those also. So you're looking at over 34.5 at 2.75 and over 40.5 at 8. The Brazilians have a pretty high dispossession rate, mostly in all their games because they all try dribbles. You're looking at Neymar, Richarlison, Vinicius racks them up. Rafinha can rack them up if he's not lazy on his day, but Vinicius always racks him up. Neymar always racks him up. Also, you're looking at those wingers can get the tackles themselves, which is a pretty amazing phenomenon. You don't usually see teams that will be the dominant team like Brazil will be in this game. They don't have as much possession as you'd maybe think they would, but they're so direct. That's why. And those guys just all dribblers all day long at that Serbian backline. So you don't want cards really, because then the guys get a little cautious or something. So you're looking for no cards. That'd be the trip up here, I'd say, in this bet. On the Serbian side, really, if they a couple again get cards early, that'd be no good for this bet. But I really love this line. You got Brazil, who's in friendlies, hit 29 against Tunisia. That's short, but it's a Tunisian side who's not going to be runners, not going to be racking up a ton of tackles, and it's in a friendly. And still, that game got 29, and we only need 3 more than that. And then Ghana recently, the Brazilians it was 46 tackles in that game. So this line's clicked in 10 of the main line in 10 of the last 13 non-friendly. So 10 of the last 13 competitive games for Brazil, and all but one of their games in Copa America. So you can kind of translate that tournament setting where they're going to get a lot more tackles and stick their foot in a lot more effort, more controlled effort in a tournament setting than in a different setting. So it's really good news that they only lost this bet once on the main line in Copa America. And the Serbian side is probably why you're getting the odds for above to average tackles game here at in the 30s is above to average for a game. So you're probably getting those odds. You're thinking, oh, why are you getting those odds if the Brazilians get tackles and are tackled? Well, it's probably because the Serbians, they have a probably a little bit less than average tackle rate or dispossessed rate, excuse me, not tackle rate, but their tackle rate is pretty average. So I'd say you're getting the odds because of them, but also it's just way too much value not to take because the Brazilians, the game states just always tend to lead to tackles. So love the overs goals here. Should see a lot of action on the tackles and hopefully not too many cars there. But I mean, there definitely could be a few, but the tackles, I just don't see it missing regardless. Like I said, 10 of the last 13 Brazilian competitive matches. So it's over 31.5 at 1.86.
All right, mate. Great stuff. I look forward to watching that game. It should be fun, especially if it's tight late on and Brazil have to bring on some of their attacking talent up front. It'll just be ridiculous to see, if the likes of Vinicius Junior doesn't start, Martinelli, Gabriel Jesus, like it's questionable as to why the likes of Rafinha and Richarlison start when you've got just some of those guys on the bench. Obviously, it's worked for them in the past, but it'll be like Firmino.
Arsenal bias. Stop the Arsenal.
Clear
bias.
Arsenal bias there, mate.
Stop the Arsenal bias.
Hey, mate, the proof is in the pudding. Top of the league, 5 points clear against the greatest side of all time, Manchester City. Anything else, fellas? Yeah, that's what I thought, fellas.
Stunned us into silence.
Say anything and he won't invite us back.
Arsenal podcast live at 9 p.m. tomorrow night. We're talking about how good we are. Anyway, best bets for tomorrow, fellas. I'm going to lock in mine nice and early here. Brazil over 1.5 goals at 1.8 at Bet365. Hopefully you can still get that. I did bet that a day ago, so I'm not sure if you can get that, but I think I'd take that down to maybe 1.75. I'd be happy to take. Yourself, Neel?
I'm going to go with Switzerland. Switzerland on the corner handicap against Cameroon. Yeah. I really like that. Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff, mate. And Paul, mate.
Yeah, I'll go with like I did last time. I'll give out the liquid market bet for the best bet. I'd say I'd do. I'll go with the risky over 3.75 Brazil Serbia goals and at 3.5, and I'll also go with the tackles in that game for the heaviest bet, best bet.
All right, good stuff. There's some exciting games tomorrow. Surely we're going to get some goals in this Brazil-Serbia match at least, but there's some other great sides that can score goals, Uruguay and the like. So let's pray for goals tomorrow in the last round of group games. But we will be back tomorrow. I believe we have George Gamble on tomorrow and the debut of Tony Alvarez being back on the show, which will be fun. He's actually in Qatar for the World Cup, so get some insight from him as to how that's all playing out over there. He looks like he's had some interesting issues with his accommodation too. So we'll get all the gossip straight from Qatar tomorrow. Be back tomorrow 9 p.m. UK time, 10 p.m. CET. You can find this gentleman on Twitter at Feinting the Line for Paul and at My Better Life on Twitter for Neel. Both got their own respective channels you can subscribe to there, which are full of all these great bets that they're giving out, and of course you'll get them a little bit earlier than on the podcast, so you won't miss out on any of these lines. But other than that, thanks for listening, everyone. Please make sure you give our podcast a quick rate and review if it's your first time on, and subscribe to us wherever you are listening. And if you're looking to implement some of the strategies we talk about on the podcast every day, more so the value betting ones, please make sure you start a free week trial of TradeMate Sports and start your value betting journey. Thank you once again, fellas, and enjoy Thanksgiving. I believe it is for you, Paul. You got a big weekend coming up.
Yep. Family all day tomorrow. So Yeah,
Maybe
man.
not that fun.
The
Then.
the rest is needed. The rest is needed for sure. Yeah, yeah. Will I get any rest? That's the real question. Yeah.
Good stuff, mate. All right, enjoy the weekend, fellas. We'll catch you next week.
Cheers, guys. Thanks, Alex.